Alright, so we're going to move into our geometry unit. So, some people who really like algebra hate this unit, and then some people who hate algebra kind of like this unit, and then some people hate all units. So, wherever you are, let's see. So, this is going to be classifying triangles, and our learning target is I can classify triangles. So, anytime you see this word, that's just a fancy word for name. So, we're going to name triangles. Probably this is stuff you already know, but maybe not. Okay, so you can classify triangles by angles. So if you have 3 acute angles, that's called an acute triangle. Super hard to remember, I know. If you have 1 obtuse angle, so here's your obtuse angle, which means bigger than 90 degrees, that is called an obtuse triangle. If you have a right angle, that's called a right triangle. And if you have 3 congruent triangles, you know they're congruent because you got these little marks right here. That means congruent anytime you see that. So if you have 3 congruent, that is called an equal, like this, angular, which just means equal angles, triangle, equal angular triangle. Alright. Make sure I didn't skip a page. Okay, that's good. So directions. So we're going to use the diagram and classify each triangle by its angles, which means we're just going to name it. So it's either going to be an acute triangle, an obtuse triangle, a right triangle, or an equal angular triangle. Alright, so notice how the letters are ordered. You have to go in that order. So we're going to start with C, and then go to D, and then to E. So I'm talking about this triangle right here. That triangle has a right angle, so it has to be a right triangle. Alright. Okay, so using the letters again, we're going to go from B to C to E. So I'm talking about that triangle right there. This is an obtuse angle, so this one is going to be an obtuse triangle. Alright, same thing for the next one. We're going to follow the order of the letters. Abe. A to B to E. So all 3 angles are congruent. This one is an equal angular triangle. These are pretty easy. Sometimes people have trouble just following the order of the letters, then they get confused. But just do what I'm doing. So B to D to E. So I'm talking about this one. So another angle that's bigger than 90, so it must be an obtuse triangle. And then the last one, we got from C to F to E. So C, F, E. Okay. So all of those are less than 90, so I would name this one an acute triangle. It's a little cutie. Okay, moving on. So there are also ways that you can classify triangles by sides. So if you see 3 equal sides, that's one we call an equilateral triangle. Lateral. And that comes from the Greek word equal, meaning equal, and then lateral, meaning sides. Anytime you see that word lateral, it means sides. Okay, if it has 2 congruent sides, that's when you call it an isosceles triangle. And if it has 1 congruent side, or you can say no congruent sides, I guess that would be a little more appropriate, that's when you have a scalene. So this should not be new information, but it should be a review. Maybe you've forgotten. And now we're going to do the same thing we did on the other one. We're going to classify by using the sides this time. So we're going to still use the same order. J, K, M. So J to K to M. I'm talking about this big one. So these markings mean congruent. So this one is congruent to none of the other ones. So this one is actually a scalene triangle. Alright. The next one, We got K to L to N. Alright, so these two sides have 2 markings on it, which means those 2 are congruent. And then this third one only has 1. So it only has 2 congruent sides. And when you have 2 congruent sides, that's your isosceles triangle. Alright, and then the last one, you can probably guess what it's going to be. But we're going to go from J to K to N. So J, K to N. So notice these have that 1 marking, which means all 3 of those are congruent to each other. So that is when we use the term equilateral triangle. Equilateral, equal sides is what it translates to. Okay, pretty easy. Alright, so what I want you to do right now, I want you to pause the video and I want you to classify by its angles and by its sides. So it's going to have 2 names. One of them is going to be by its sides, one of them is going to be by its angles. So I want you to pause it right now and see if you can figure it out. Alright, so you can check your work by what I did, see if you got it right. First one is a right triangle, it's also an isosceles triangle. 10 is an obtuse and a scalene. 11 is an equal angular and equilateral. 12 is acute and scalene. 13 is right and scalene. 14 is obtuse and isosceles. So just remember that you could have 2 different names for every triangle you encounter, because you could be naming it by its sides or you could be naming it by its angles. Okay, so now let's look at when geometry and algebra mix. So if it wants you to know it's talking about a triangle, it's going to put a little triangle in front of it. So this is literally saying if triangle ABC is an equilateral triangle, solve for both x and y. Equilateral means equal sides. So if you know the sides are equal, you can set them equal to each other. So if one of them is just a number, set it equal to an expression. Okay, and then you have this expression also going to equal this number. And the whole point of doing that is because the problem tells you it's an equilateral. So you have to understand that equilateral means equal sides. Then you have to understand that you can set those equal to each other. And then it's just middle school math. So I'm going to get rid of the plus 1 by subtracting. So I got 48 equals 3x. And I'm going to get rid of the 3 by dividing. So x equals 16. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next one. I'm going to get rid of the minus 41 by adding. So I got 90 equals 18y. And I'm going to get rid of 18 by dividing. So y equals 5. Very important, just make sure you actually answered what it asked for, x and y. We got x and we got y. So we solved what we were looking for. Okay, this one's a little, well, it's kind of the same. So if triangle RST is an equilateral triangle, meaning equal sides, we're going to find x and the measure of each side. So lots of things we're looking for in this one. If we know the sides are equal, we can set them equal to each other. And it doesn't matter which 2 you pick, because if you notice, they all have the same variable. So, I don't know. I'm going to pick this side and this side, just randomly. You could do 2 different sides, and you still get the same answer that I'm about to get. So I'm going to get all my x's to one side. And then I'm going to get rid of this minus 6. And then the last thing I'm going to do is get rid of the 3. So I got x equals 8. Check. I found only one part of this question because it also asked me to find the measure of each side. So I'm going to have to take this value 8 and plug it in everywhere I see an x. Okay, so I get 74. I can also plug it in here. I get 74, and I plug it in here, and I get 74. Okay, so I found that x equals 8, check, and I found the measure of each side was 74, check, check. So I have done everything the problem has asked me to do. Alright, so look at this one. If triangle DEF is an isosceles triangle, meaning that two sides are congruent, with DE, this one, and EF being congruent or equal to each other, we're going to find X and the measure of each side. So if I know that DE and EF are equal to each other, I can take those equations and set them equal to each other also. Alright, so now I'm going to get all my X's to one side. I'm going to move the 13 to the other side. And I'm going to divide by 3. So I know that X equals 10, but I don't know the measure of each side. I'm going to plug in, if I know X equals 10, I'm going to plug in 10. So I get that this is equal to 67. I don't really have to plug into this other side because I know they're equal, so that one's also 67. But the one at the bottom, I don't know what it is until I plug it in. But it's really easy to find, so 31. So I found that X equals 10, and I found the measure of each side. There are 3 sides to a triangle, and so I've done everything the problem asked me to do. Okay, so notice this one has changed a little bit. This one you don't have a picture, and sometimes that happens, and that's fine. Take a deep breath. What I want you to do is I want you to read it, and I want you to see if you can draw the picture accurately. So go ahead and pause the video and try to draw it. 1, 2, 3. So if ABC is isosceles, that means 2 sides are equal. And it even tells you which 2 are equal. So these 2 are equal. It tells me that AB equals 3x plus 41. It tells me that BC equals 8x minus 54. And that AC equals 12x minus 103. So this is what your picture should look like, or very similar to. And now, since I know that the AB and BC sides are equal, I can take those equations and set them equal to each other. I'm going to get all my X's to one side. I'm going to move my 54 over. And I'm going to divide by 5 on both sides. I get X is equal to 19. So that's just this part. I haven't found the measure of each side. So now I'm going to plug back in. So 3 times 19 plus 41. I get 98. I know that this side is also 98 because it's isosceles, so both of them are the same. But I don't know this one down here, so I just need to plug in 19 again. And I get 125. So I found that X is equal to 19, and I found all 3 of the sides, so I have completed the problem. Alright, so try your assignment. I think this one is pretty easy. Sometimes people have a hard time visualizing what it's actually going to do, and then just trying to remember the math steps back from middle school. But let me know if you have any questions, and I'll be happy to help.